What do you understand as one of the biggest names on both titles as the reason behind the decision to sell a profitable newspaper like The Observer to an outfit that has no newspaper, although people on Tortoise have newspaper experience, it is not a newspaper business?
I mean, hi
Hello.
James. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for your support in signing the letter along with, I think, is it 100 celebrities and actors and all sorts.
100 celebrities and me.
And I mean, I wish I could answer that question, but the difficulty is that no current or former journalist or editor on the Observer or the Guardian has any clue. We are completely in the dark, as are our readers. Like, that's one of the most important things in
Yes.
this, in that the Guardian has decided to divest itself of this 233-year-old title, and it decided to do that in complete secrecy. It entered into these confidential and exclusive negotiations with Tortoise Media, and it didn't tell the journalists, it didn't even tell the editor of The Observer, it didn't consult with the readers or even let them know. And it's still as clear as mud. And but so much so that we went out. So we had this historic vote. The Guardian and Observer journalists haven't been on strike in half a century. And we voted, and 93% of us voted to go on strike, which is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
It's 2 weeks before Christmas, and journalists are giving up 4 days' salary. For a lot of the younger journalists, that is considerable financial hardship. And it's because we think that it's a total betrayal of everything the organisation stands for. And our only demand, it's not like we're out there, sort of demanding, luxury yachts for every journalist. All we're asking for is a pause so that we can understand what the strategic thinking is and look at the other possibilities. Because, in fact, actually, I think 3 or 4 other bidders have now come forward. Now they found it out it's for sale. Some of whom are actually offering, as is traditional in a sale, they're offering money for the title. But instead, what the Guardian has agreed to is to give money to Tortoise to take us off its hands. And
So this is spluttering incomprehension then, right across the editorial floor of both newspapers. This isn't a sort of traditional industrial action for better wages. It's like we do not even begin to understand what is going on here with our beloved title.
And yeah, that is right. And it's likely, to be honest with you, it isn't even self-interest. I think there is so much which comes from this, which is that we, the journalists, just really believe in our journalism. We believe in what we do. And we believe that press freedom is under attack. We believe
Why do you believe that? Let me pick you up on it. I know James
Yeah.
Harding, who heads up Tortoise. I like him. He's a good
Yeah.
operator. He's run news at the BBC. Did a decent job at the Times. The legend is that he was one of the Murdoch editors that stood up to Murdoch, which is why he's no longer a Murdoch editor. So why would he, as the man that runs Tortoise, be such an undesirable proprietor?
James is many things and is an extremely nice and affable man, but a successful media entrepreneur, he is not.
Right.
Tortoise has never made a profit. Its last set of accounts show that it lost 4.5 million on revenue of 6 million. Now, you don't have to be a financial genius to figure that those aren't actually the kind of numbers that you want from an organisation poised to take over a 233-year-old title. We still actually don't even know who the other investors are. And what we do know is that he couldn't raise enough money to raise the 25 million he said he was going to invest in The Observer. And The Guardian has actually stepped in to give him 5 million towards that sum. So that's 5 million pounds, by the way, which Guardian and Observer readers have voluntarily donated to The Guardian to support The Guardian and Observer's journalism, that is now being poured into this private entity with, we don't know quite know who else.
And if The Guardian said we're paying that money to ensure that the traditions at The Observer continue and that the staff are properly looked after, you and your colleagues would respond by saying, yeah, but that doesn't explain why you're selling it.
Well, also the only reason. So the thing which disturbs us most, James, is that we believe we're being set up for failure. And the reason why we believe that is because why would the Guardian want a competitive threat on at the weekend? Why would the Guardian want another news organisation to potentially take its reader revenues, to take its ad sales revenues? Why would it do so unless it's so convinced that the fact that we're going to go onto a new website with no traffic behind a paywall means that we pose no competitive threat? And that's the only explanation we can come up for as to why
They
it's
do
refusing.
this rather than go down any other path. And would it mean the end
rather
of the
than
print
anything.
edition? Would it mean the end of the print edition? Do we know?
Well, no, because you know what? The whole thing is the Observer as a print edition makes money.
Yeah.
It actually makes money for the Guardian. This is why the whole rationale behind why they're selling it is just doesn't make any sense to us. And it's the same with your listeners, right, James? You depend upon your listeners. They're the lifeblood of the show, aren't they?
No, they're all right.
And we feel, this is to go back to it. We feel that the readers are the ones being betrayed in this, in that they're not being told about it. They're not being consulted. They have poured money into this organisation to support our journalism. And now it's being sold off for parts, essentially, without...
It is an extraordinary business, even by the standards of our sclerotic industry. What you mentioned press freedom. Why should my listeners who don't take the Observer or the Guardian, why should they care about this?
Because we already, as you've reported so often, have a really, really constrained media landscape in this country, in that half of the press is controlled by Rupert Murdoch. Some other bits of the press are controlled by Evgeny Lebedev, the son of a KGB officer, and that's
really, Lord Lebedev to you, Carole.
That's Lord Lebedev of Siberia to indeed.
Yes.
And that's why the Guardian, which has this very special structure, which has this independence because of this, it's been sitting on this endowment fund, and that's what's made it so precious, really. And it has been able to be sort of very robust and independent, and we see this, that's really diminishing and being lost for the Observer and also lost for the Guardian, because this takes a huge chunk of journalistic resource out of the Guardian too.
Of course.
And it's, we feel it's been sort of trashing its reputation in the process, which also puts it under threat.
I hesitate to ask this question. You don't have to answer it, but what do you feel in your bones about the likelihood of stopping it?
I think they've shown themselves. The fact is that the Guardian has run endless editorials down the years about the importance of unions and the labour movement and the history of the labour movement. And whilst we were actually, as journalists, out on strike last week, they convened a special meeting, and at that meeting they voted to proceed
to press on. Yes.
So I think that gives you an indication of how actually they're determined not to listen. We know they've had hundreds of letters from readers. They're showing a great determination to press on with this regardless.
Without telling anyone why. Without telling anyone why they're doing it and why they're so determined to do it, which isn't quite the same question, is it? But neither of them have been answered. No,
exactly. So I think it does feel that we're pushing a stone uphill. But at the same time, there are fights which it's important to have.
You've got to have them. Yeah, no, I'm with you. And full solidarity from me, as you know. While I have you, you'll be aware of the decision in Romania to overturn an election result because of Russian interference. That's right up your street.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Whereas in this country, we pretend that there's never been any. The government still refuses to investigate what actually happened at any point in elections in the last 10 years. Actually, James, I was part of I helped with the sort of non-profit that I set up called The Citizens, organise a group of MPs to challenge the government to have an inquiry into foreign interference in British elections, which is now winding its way through the European Court on Human Rights. But we're launching a podcast next week, which is telling the story of Russian interference in the last 10 years through a spy scandal. So it's called Sergei and the Westminster Spy Ring, and
Look at that.
and it's trying to sort of set out all the reasons as to why we need that. We need, this is what the MPs are saying. They're just
Yeah.
saying have an inquiry. It's like we don't actually know. I mean, that's what we found out in the Russia report, that actually the intelligence services couldn't answer the question whether there had or hadn't been because nobody had actually looked.
Well, of course you can. I mean, Sergei and the Westminster Spy Ring kicks off next week with you, with Carole Cadwalladr. I love that. You should come on my podcast, though, at some point. You still have never come on Full Disclosure. Lots of people want to hear your story. Carole is a legend, writes Mike. They've thrown everything at her, trying to silence her heroic journalism over the last few years, and a few people saying Carole must come on Full Disclosure. But in the meantime, we'll happily...
Scare me, James. You're too good an interviewer.
Don't be quiet. It's absolute nonsense. And good luck with the continuing battle. I mean, industrial action and raising public awareness. It's always a pleasure, Carole. It's been too long.
Thank you. Well, also just to say this, just to go back to the Romania thing briefly.
Yes.
Right. The whole point is that our elections, we know, are going to be, will continue to be under threat. Elon Musk, we can see what he did in America. We know that he's now got Britain squarely in his sights. If we're not strengthening the law now, then we are going to be utterly vulnerable. And it's madness to think that we're not completely next in line.
Carole Cadwalladr, thank you.